Continuing this week's serial killer saga with the Baton Rouge serial killer, Derrick Todd Lee. This is Hold My Sweet Tea. Good day. I'm Pearl.
And I'm Holly.
I got old on Monday.
You did.
Mm-hmm.
She aged.
I aged on Monday.
A whole year.
It's BS.
Don't recommend it.
No.
But happy birthday yesterday.
0 out of 10. Do not recommend. I do love the gift bag my pretend adult daughter gave me my presents in.
Yeah, it was pretty cute.
It's glittery and it's... So that part I don't love because then, I open my present and by the time I'm done, I look like a stripper.
Yeah, just covered in glitter. Just call me sparkly.
But it said another, I won't say the word, effing birthday. But it said the actual word.
Right.
She's like, I got it at Spencer's.
Oh, cute. Of course, Spencer's would put glitter on everything.
I was like, thank you. That's my favorite gift bag ever.
Right. And then you drove all the way to Alabama to go eat.
I did. Because that's what old people do.
Right.
3-hour road trip for dinner.
You're like, yeah.
Look at me being spontaneous. Or dumb. I don't know. It was raining all day too.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like, took 2 seconds to walk through some sand and put my feet in the very hot water of the Gulf of effing America.
Mexico. Thank you.
And
or as we call it down here in the South, the Gulf.
Yeah.
Because nobody says
the Gulf.
anything.
Nobody ever says the rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, really warm, which is ominous. I don't like it.
Yeah, especially with hurricane season.
Yeah.
I don't like it either.
I was like, this is bad. Yeah. Everybody else around there is like, oh, the water feels so great because it's warm. I'm like, no, dummy. You want it to be cold.
Right. You don't want, especially this early. It does not need to be warm.
No.
But everybody's having unseasonably warm weather, so it sucks.
Yeah. Hopefully nothing too serious comes our way. I'm not in the mood for Katrina.
Oh, me either. Not again.
That's when my pretend adult daughter was born, between Katrina and Tropical Storm Rita.
Katrina and Rita.
Yeah.
Sounds like a margarita.
Katrina Rita.
Katrina Rita. Oh, gosh.
Somebody's going to make that drink.
Somebody's about to make it. Yep. Katrina Rita.
But, yeah, I don't want to be in that again because that was terrible and gross. And my poor baby had jaundice when she was born. And they're like, sit outside in the sun with her. Take all her clothes off. 30 minutes at a time, a couple of times a day, so she doesn't have to come back and be in the hospital and lay under the light. And I'm like, what sun?
Right. Also, do you want my baby to get sunburn?
I was like, there is no sun.
Right.
So, and then I had to feed her like once every 2 hours, whether she was asleep or not. So I'm like having to wake up all night long every 2 hours to force feed this baby who kept falling asleep. And I'm like, wake up.
You're right.
Rubbing underneath her chin. Like, you have to eat so that you poop out the jaundice.
You got to get the jaundice. Now that we've had jaundice talk.
So good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we're doing this in the morning because we seem to have a better podcast experience in the morning instead of the evening when we're dead tired.
Yeah. Work kills us.
Yeah. I don't know what that was, but did you hear it?
I heard it.
And there's nobody else in this building. I think we just had a paranormal experience. I'm pretty sure the audio picked that up. It was a clank.
I don't know, but it sounded like, through my headphones, it sounded like a grumble than a clank.
Yeah,
like,
a little bit.
Clink.
And then clank, yeah.
I hope our air conditioner didn't just
It's either the AC unit or I would rather it be a paranormal apparition.
Right, me too.
Than our AC breaking.
Please don't break air conditioner.
Air conditioning's way more important. I can deal with a ghost.
Right. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, so we're traveling to Baton Rouge again today, I see.
Yes, back to Baton Rouge for the Baton Rouge Serial Killer, Derrick Todd Lee.
The OG.
Mine is actually going to be 2 parts, so you get half of it today, half of it next Thursday.
Ooh, so stay tuned.
Yeah. So, today we're just going to talk about him. We'll finish off with who his victims were, and then next week I'll actually talk about them, because I didn't want to just say their names and how they were murdered or anything. I want to make sure that we talk about the ones that have stories and stuff like that. So, Derrick Todd Lee, the unicorn.
The unicorn.
Because, they were looking for a white man the whole time.
Yep, they sure were.
Because typically, serial killers are white. But here we are. He was born November 5th, 1968 in St. Francisville. He grew up in a largely still segregated Louisiana, so that in itself would have a negative effect on a young black male. His mother, Florence Lee, was only 17 years old when she had him. His father, Samuel, was said to have had a very serious mental health issues, much like your guy.
Like Sean Gillis.
Yeah. And at one point, he even attempted to murder his ex-wife.
Oh, wow.
So, he obviously would be institutionalized and wouldn't have any part in his children's lives post that. But I was like, when you were talking about yours last week, I was sitting over here like, be quiet. Be quiet.
Don't say a word.
But I was like, apparently both of them went through the same thing with their dads having mental health issues, like, and on a serious
their
level.
Life. Yeah.
And then dipping. So Florence would actually marry Coleman Barrow, and they would raise Lee and his sisters. Now, this guy, his stepdad, actually, like, some of the detectives knew him. So when all this stuff started going down, they would call him and be like, Mr. Coleman, do you know where your stepson is?
Right.
Lee's IQ, they talk a lot about it. And some sources say it was even under 65, but most places it said it was below 75. And so he was in special ed in school. It said that he did face a lot of bullying as a child because of this. And honestly, by the time Lee was 11 years old, he had already been caught peeping. So he had like a big peeping Tom issue.
Okay.
He would peep in the windows of his neighbors' houses where he knew that little girls lived.
Oh, no.
This would be something he continued to do as an adult. In his instance, he did also torture animals, which doesn't always mean they're gonna be a serial killer.
Right.
But more often than not, they are.
That's their first phase, experimental, getting their fix.
Right. Learning what they like, basically. By age 13, Lee had already been arrested for simple burglary. He would be known to the local police for his voyeuristic tendencies. He literally had gotten in trouble in Zachary, Louisiana, several times over Peeping Tom stuff.
Yeah, and Zachary's like a really hometown kind of little town.
Yeah, it's pretty rural
Mm-hmm.
out there. Most of it is anyway. So it's like they have really nice neighborhoods, but those neighborhoods are like in the middle of a big ass field.
Right.
So they're not like right next to the store or, whatever. It's just like you still got a little drive to town.
Yes.
He would pull a knife on a boy when he was 16. He was in a fight with him, and he would be charged with attempted second-degree murder.
Holy crap.
At 16.
16?
Right? The next year, he would be arrested for his peeping. But despite the continuous complaints and multiple arrests, he would never be incarcerated. Obviously, Lee did not complete high school. He just was like, nope, done with that. In 1988, Lee would marry Jacqueline Sims, and they would have 3 kids together. Derrick Jr., a daughter, Doris, and another son, Dedrick. Not long after getting married, Lee would plead guilty to unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling. So, he didn't take anything, but he, got caught by the people who were living there inside their house.
Okay. So they were home at the time?
The wife was home, and the husband walked in.
He's like,
and caught Derrick Todd Lee in his house.
What the hell are you doing in my house? Yeah.
Yeah.
But he could have been there to
start what he started much later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Derrick would work his construction job and spend weekends with his family, but all was not well. He also spent a lot of time drinking and having affairs.
Oh.
So their theory is, that people he was very unassuming. No one thought he was dangerous. He seemed really nice, very charming, didn't look scary.
Yeah.
Any of that. So in February of 2000, one of those relationships would prove volatile. And when the woman he was having an affair with filed for a protective order, Lee would assault her in a bar parking lot.
Dang.
What? She got a protective order and you decide...
right. I can't see you, so now I'm going to assault you?
Right. How smart was that? There's a lot of weird things he's done that I am I think they are attributing to his low IQ. Because it seems like everything he does is completely emotionally driven. He's not thinking about it. He just goes into a rage and that's that. So he spent the following year incarcerated for that, but he was released in 2001 on house arrest. Lee would lose several jobs and even at one point file for bankruptcy. The bankruptcy was filed during his spree. So they say they feel like that was kind of those stressors of losing the jobs and filing bankruptcy were contributors to his unhinging. Obviously, we know he went on a killing spree and became known as the Baton Rouge Serial Killer. It's believed that some of his crimes occurred very close to the stressful situations we just talked about, and profilers with the FBI would say that the person they were looking for was probably white, between the ages of 25 and 35, tight finances, low IQ, and while awkward with women, he would seem innocent and harmless. This was all derived from the crime scenes. There was never any forced entry, so it was believed that he was let in. To everyone.
I love a good FBI profile.
Yeah.
How they come to all these conclusions. It's so great.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit. Like I said, they obviously expect it to be white because most of them are.
Yep, right.
So
the majority, yeah.
But here's what happened that led to them believing that this had to be a white man. Okay, so two of the bodies were dumped at Whiskey Bay.
Yes.
There was a truck driver who reported to police that he saw a white truck with a white man driving it and a naked lady in the passenger seat. A naked white woman. So they assume white.
Yeah.
He's white. So that whole time, like, they're running around checking all these white guys in white trucks.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I can't imagine being a white man in a white truck.
Well, and at the
during that
time, I'm
time.
pretty sure it was a Chevrolet pickup
Yes.
truck. My dad had a big, like, white truck at that time.
Yeah.
And I remember joking to him. I was like,
They're coming for you,
yeah,
daddy.
they're coming for you, daddy. You've been out killing people. My dad's like, I ain't got time for that.
Right. It's like, I'm too busy working, girl. Shut
Right. My dad was a workaholic. But he had the same type of truck, though. It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot. I had a lot of friends who drove white Chevy trucks.
Right.
And they're like, oh, God.
Yep. It was like an older model truck, you know, and one of those big
and a lot of
guzzlers.
Teenagers driving those and younger adults because they were like, oh, this was my first car. My dad gave it to me or whatever. And then you're like, I wish he never would have.
Right.
Because now you're a suspect. Like, every white man in a white Chevy truck, you're a suspect. And, like, literally, they were just, like, pulling people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of trucks.
So basically, like, you know, they had, in your case, they had some DNA that wasn't really linked to a person because, he hasn't been incarcerated for very much. He was in one thing, but it wasn't like they didn't automatically take it back then. So they did not have his DNA on file. There was a big disconnect about what was happening in Baton Rouge and what had previously happened in Zachary, because one of the women actually that was killed in a house across the street from the house that he was caught peeping in, like, literally across the street.
Wow.
And so, but she had just, like, disappeared. Her body wasn't even there. I'm not even sure that they ever found. I'll figure it out before we get to the next one, because that was something that's on my list to
research.
Find. Yeah. But literally, this finally connects up after the task force is created and the profile and everything else, and then Zachary Police gets to go deliver a subpoena for some DNA, and that DNA obviously connects to the others, but before all of that, they used the DNA they were finding at the crime scene to send off and have it analyzed, because they had the ability to use that DNA profile to tell you ethnicity and stuff like that of the person that it came from. So literally, that's how they realized,
this is a black
wait
male.
a minute, it's a black man. It's not a white man. We've been looking for the wrong guy the whole time. And so that
was a game changer.
Yeah, that was a game changer. Whoa. And that's why I feel like at that point, the Zachary police were able to go, hey, we have this guy. He looks like the sketch of the lady who he attacked, but ended up, he heard her son coming down the gravel driveway, and he took off. So she was alive, and she got to tell them what he looked like. Yeah. And that sketch looked very close to him. So, I mean, all those things combined is what kind of led to the downfall. But that's a whole nother episode.
That's episode 2. So y'all have to stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Now, he would only be found guilty of 2 murders, but would ultimately be linked via DNA to 7 victims total. There was also a living victim, like I was saying, of an attack. And then there was that lady who I told you he stalked in Zachary, which she's still a victim.
Right. She's still a victim.
Her personal space was intruded.
It could have been a fatality.
My thing is like, could there be more that
possibly
just nobody knows about? I don't know. The police would eventually provide Lee with a subpoena for his DNA. Lee and his family, though, when all that happened, literally pulled their kids out of school and took off to Atlanta after he gave his DNA.
Oh, wow.
So he's like, they swabbed him and he ran after they left.
Guilty much? Right.
So he would actually be arrested in Atlanta and returned to Louisiana for his crimes. He would be found guilty and sentenced to death by lethal injection. But the craziest parts of all of this is like people who had come in contact with Lee in Atlanta, it was like a few weeks long that he was there. They would say he was charming. He had started a Bible study class in a motel in Southwest Atlanta. He was working cash jobs in the construction field and would barbecue for his neighbors and like to pursue and court women despite the fact that his wife and his children are with him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Residents of the Lakewood Motor Lodge were shocked when Lee was arrested. All telling stories of a gentle man who was easy to get along with. He was telling people in Atlanta that he was from Mississippi and that he was just having some marital problems.
But your wife's there.
Are you kidding me? Your wife is in the room.
Right. I'm just having some marital problems. I came out here. Who is that?
I came out here with my wife and kids. I'm having marital problems. That's why I'm flirting with all these ladies.
Oh, my gosh.
There was a lady that he actually flirted with first out there, and he kept trying to get her to let him come over. And she was like, he just freaked me out.
Yeah.
She got the ick from him.
Good thing.
Yeah, good thing, because she could have been his first Atlanta victim.
Yeah, for sure.
So on January 21st, 2016, Derrick Todd Lee would die of heart disease, so he never made it to be executed. The victims of Derrick Todd Lee were Randy Brewer in April of 1998, Gina Wilson Green in September of 2001, Geraldine Barr in January 2002, Charlotte Murray Pace in May of 2002, Pam Kinamore in July of 2002, Trinisha Danae Colomb in November 2002, and Carrie Lynn Yoder in March of 2003. Like, you see, he did like 98, skipped a couple of years, 2001, was whatever for a year. Then 2002, he went wild.
He got bold, and he was like...
He's like, well, I got away with those other ones.
I got away with them, and let me just go on a killing spree now. Yeah.
Then there was Diane Alexander, who survived the attack by Lee in July of 2002. So he actually attacked Diane Alexander, cut her phone cord, was going to strangle her with it, left with a piece of it. When her son interrupted the whole ordeal. And Pam Kinamore, who was also in July of 2002, when they found her, she had that phone cord wrapped around her neck. So, yeah, crazy stuff. But Diane was the one who was obviously instrumental in helping the police create a sketch. I'm going to include his entire damn family, because his children get to live their life as the child of the Baton Rouge serial killer. You know, his widow, same thing. They're forever known for that. Right. And that sucks. And not to mention that now, just the mental ramifications of knowing my dad did all this to these people.
Right. Like, how much therapy would you have to...
And then the worry, because, you know, in a child's head, they're like, am I going to grow up and be just like him? That's got to be a scary
Right, because his father had mental issues, and then him,
and then he did this. Yeah. So it's like, what to expect.
Yeah, you start to think about your thoughts and be like, am I thinking things that, you know, are unnatural or that I shouldn't be thinking about?
Right. But, you know, I feel like it's important to point that out, too. Like, the people he killed are not the only victims in this. Like, their families, their friends. Just the whole world that's missing out on what these brilliant women could have done. Yes. What some of them had already did, you know, that didn't get to continue. So it's just like this list is short compared to the shockwave that's sent out when it happens to one. But in 2018, Derrick Lee, one of his sons, was arrested for negligent homicide in the death of his friend Valentine Brooks, who was only 16. It is said, sadly, I want to point out first, the article I read this in was titled, Son of the Baton Rouge Serial Killer.
Like, why do you have to link that
Arrested.
to him? Right. Because that makes
like,
it
doesn't
more...
even put his name in the title. Mm-hmm. It's not anywhere until you get into the article, and I'm just like, why do you do this?
Right.
I mean, obviously, that's to catch the eyes of everybody else. They're like, oh, what?
Clickbait.
Clickbait, yes. Yeah. But I'm just like, that's exactly what I mean.
You never live that down.
No, you don't. But apparently the kids were, like, the story is that the kids were making a music video in a bedroom, and the kid who died had a gun. And he's, like, showing it to all his friends. They're passing it around. He's saying it's not loaded, blah, blah, blah. It goes off while it's in the hand of Derrick Lee. Yeah. Kills his friend.
Ugh, that's awful.
Yeah. So I can't find where this, like, continued. I'll try to look and see if I can dig a little harder. But in the time that we had in the nasty busy week we had, I could not find where there was some decision or anything else. It literally was just the article saying it happened.
Yeah.
I have to wonder if anybody even took the time to find out, because in that point it was about just, oh, look, the serial killer's kid is killing people.
Right. So you're like, oh my gosh, let me click on this and read all about it. And
yeah,
that's dirty of the media.
Right. Media dirty. So that's where I end today, because I'm going to go into, like I said, all the victims.
Yes, I can't wait to hear about all that.
Talk about who they were before Derrick Todd Lee. And there's some, like, court stuff, too, that I can share. Our theme music by Patty Salzetta. And share our podcast.
Share it everywhere.
Share links to the episode.
I thought you were talking about share. Do you believe in life after love?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yes, I do, because love sucks.
Oh my goodness. The compilation of songs that could arise in this moment, but I'm going to control myself.
That was my Cher impression. Sorry if I ruined anybody's
Follow
ears.
us on social media. We're just as dumb there.
Yes, absolutely.
We are on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, which hopefully once our work stops
being so worky.
Yeah. Stops trying to murder us. This will be the next true crime story.
Yeah.
Work kills 2 old ladies.
Yes, but we should be able to get some better YouTube videos out. I've been working on, like, the shorts and stuff. Those have been coming out pretty good. So we'll get some better stuff.
But hopefully we can, like, record us recording.
Yes.
Stuff like that. So that way you can see our bright, shiny faces and all the funky faces we actually make.
All the facial expressions.
While the other one's talking, the other one's face is saying many, many things that no one can see.
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll share that with you eventually.
Yep.
But if you have an idea or a comment, you just want to say, what up? Email us at steeped@holdmysweettea.com.
And as always, Hold My Sweet Tea is a Drunken Bee production.
Bzzt.
And you guys stay safe out there. And just because we're dipping doesn't mean you can't keep sipping.
Bye.